Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Are you looking for inspiration to step outside your comfort zone? Well, my next guest and her husband moved from where they were in the US all the way out to Barcelona. Not only that, they're both autistic. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and let's stay tuned for an amazing conversation. See you there.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today I'm joined with Jessee Glaze. Welcome to the show, Jessee.
Thank you.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
So I am a I have what they are calling right now ADHD, where I'm autistic and definitely have ADHD. I have a series of fun neurodivergent traits. I'm a fun little mix. And so we were kind of talking before the camera started about like, yeah, I travel and I do things and I um take more risks. My husband is autistic and he's a lot slower to warm up to new experiences, and that's not me. So my whole career path shows that, my friendships show that, my where I've lived in the country shows that I am not hesitant to take a chance to do something different. So that's kind of the thread that weaves through everything.
That now, whose idea was it to move? Was it yours or your husband's?
It was my idea. We had talked about it. Um, both we talked about moving to at least moving to Europe. He's wanted to come and work out here for a while, and I don't know, we'd kind of gone back and forth with it, and we had some friends who moved out here, and we started talking to them about it and started talking about the process, and I looked in what was actually involved, and my very meticulous autistic half got all the paperwork ready, and um, my very go with the flow intuitive ADHD half of like, I like the feel of this place. I like the vibes around here and picked our location. So that's how we wound up here.
Now, what is living like out there? I mean, for a neurodivergent, living, taking yourself, uprooting yourself, and then moving halfway across the world to a country that's rich in culture, rich in food, to a culture that's more forward thinking than the US. What was it like?
Mhm. Honestly, it's been mostly amazing. And then occasionally, like, I just have a day where I need to melt down because it's just changes, right? Like a ton of changes. Um, but my favorite thing so far has been that everything is slower
Mhm.
and it's just going to be slower.
I love
So you're not behind here. If
that's
you're taking longer to do something, so is everybody else. It's great.
that's one of the things I loved. I mean, I never get
Uh-huh.
I never told you about my life. I just like you, I'm very much of a person who's like, take chances. Let's do this.
Hmm.
Because I mean, I wrote a book all about stepping out of your comfort zone, and that's what you and I have done.
Yeah.
We literally uprooted our lives and stepped out of our comforts.
Hmm.
I went to school in England for my
Oh,
master's.
nice.
And then my mother is like, "You're not coming home." Because I was ready to go home, take my money, whatever I had left over. And my mom's like, "No, you two, you're there, you travel." So I wound up traveling through 10 countries. No,
Nice.
6 countries. 6 countries in 6 weeks. Barcelona was one of them. And the culture shock hit you first. But one of the things I loved, and I said this to everybody about when I was there, is you're right. The fact that everything moves at a slow pace. People aren't in
Yeah.
a rush. When I was going for my master's, I didn't feel like I had to rush. Everything was more laid back. I mean, how did you deal with siesta? Your first time dealing with that, with everything shutting down for like 4 to 6 hours and nothing open.
So it's been a mix. And I had some warning about it because I told you we have friends who are here. And so they were
Mhm.
like, look, siesta, like you're not going to get anything done from about noon or one to like four. And
Mhm.
what you will get done is you'll be able to sit and have lunch over a 3 hour period, and everyone around you will do the same thing. So that's been like a nice kind of enforced, relaxing coffee break. But also, where we are right now is a super immigrant heavy neighborhood. And
Mm.
so there are a lot of shops owned by people who are some first, some second generation from China or Pakistan. And so they don't really observe siesta.
Yeah.
And so it's a little bit like, oh, there are some places that we know we can go. And then most places it's like, oh, this is our relaxed time. This is when we go to the park. This is when we, run the dogs around or when we grab a cup of coffee and just relax. I'm such a go-getter sometimes, and I can kind of get on the hamster wheel of this and then this and then this for that next dopamine hit that being forced to slow down has been really, really good for me. So,
Yeah, I mean, I remember my first time hitting siesta when I was in Spain. It was either Spain or Italy, and
mhm.
I just gotten off in the plane, and it's like mid-afternoon, and I'm hungry, and I'm
Yeah.
walking. Yeah, it was Italy, and I walk around, and I see this little restaurant. We walk down. It looks like family owned. I walk down, and then the guy goes, "We're closed for siesta." I'm like, "I'm hungry." And I'm walking around. I'm like, I gotta find something. I found it like this little like bar. I mean little. Like you walk in, it's
Hmm.
like a U-shaped thing. There's this old man, and I'm like, you got any and he's selling, he's got snacks and stuff. So I got a drink and some snacks. And then there was a little convenience store where I bought like cheese and crackers and salami. And that was my lunch. And then once I realized when siesta was, I kind of planned around it. But I tell you though, one of the fun things about being in Europe is just ex for those of us like you and me, it's the exploring,
Yeah.
finding something you'd never expect to come across. I remember I remember sitting outside my hotel or just standing outside, and I see these people walking by with sandwiches that look so good that I
Yeah.
just followed around this path and I came across a restaurant, and then I realized, oh shit, I'm lost. I
Done that.
I'm
Yep.
looking. I mean, the one of the things you know when you're in Italy is they don't they meet the cops mean business when they're walking around with Uzis.
Mm.
So I walked into a police station, into the train station, and I asked a cop, and he's like, the only person that speaks English is a woman over there, and she's busy. And I'm waiting and I'm waiting. Yeah. I'm sitting there like this, standing at the door, waiting for her to finish. And I'm like, it's getting dark out. I need to get back to my hotel pronto. I go to
Hmm.
her officer behind the window and I'm like, I show him a map. I'm like, can you show, is this? He's like, don't speak English. I'm like, can you at least nod and tell me, is this the road that takes me to my hotel? He's like, see. I'm like, thank you. How did you handle navigating being your first time in there in Spain, in Barcelona without getting lost?
So I have a huge advantage, which is that I'm bilingual. So I
Uh,
speak Spanish. Yeah, well, that was a big part of the reason we wanted to move to Europe. And I didn't want to be cold, and English speaking countries are cold. And because I moved from Charlotte, North Carolina, it's pretty warm. It's honestly, I see some of the same plants out here as there are there. It's similar temperate climate. And so that was why Spain was kind of a forerunner. So it's like, okay, I speak Spanish. Um, but a lot of our first day, we didn't eat. We landed at 8 a.m. local time. We'd eaten on the plane, and things went so haywire across so many different things that we just got to the end of the night and we couldn't figure out how to get food. My husband tried, there was the siesta that hit, and we didn't know yet. Cafes are open during siesta and bars are open during siesta, but restaurants are not. And so that was a whole thing where we couldn't get like food. He tried ordering something, but we didn't have Spanish phone numbers yet, so they couldn't call us. And so we were like trying to negotiate via email, and it didn't end up working. And we just finally were like, okay, I'm almost at the point where I'm not hungry anymore because my body's just decided to run on fumes. And we just went to bed and we are like, tomorrow will be better. And the next morning, we found a cafe that's like right outside of our street. Like you walk down, and as soon as you cross in the crosswalk onto where everything is, there's this little cafe there. And we ate there for like 3 days, just like, okay, we know where this is and it's safe and it's familiar. Like, where are we? And we have since branched out and, found the grocery stores we like and started cooking and all that good stuff. But it was getting food was a process when we first got here. It was not like being back in Charlotte.
I can give you and your husband something you ought to try since you're new to Spain.
Hmm.
Look online for something called the Devour Tour. It's a
A
food
what?
tour. The Devour Tour. It's in Madrid, it's in Barcelona. And what it is you got several different options. It's a
Hmm.
4 hour walking tour, and they'll take you to different spots. Like they'll take you to like a bodega where you walk in and you got all the vendors out there. You got your cheese vendors, you got your meat vendors, and everything else. They took us to a little family-owned restaurant, taught us how to make I forget what it's called. What is bruschetta? Not bruschetta. Yeah, bruschetta with the tomatoes
Yeah.
and how to make that fresh. We She took us to a little Armenian bakery owned by the gentleman, and we each had our own pick of our own free dessert. And it in the 4 hours didn't feel like 4 hours. And we went to a little bar and we had like a local drink and we learned history and stuff. It's something you
Oh
guys should
my
try.
God.
You'd love it.
Absolutely. That sounds so good.
Now we're getting off the track. When were you
Okay.
diagnosed with autism?
So I am self-diagnosed because I was diagnosed with, so get ready for this. I've been diagnosed with depression. I have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I have been diagnosed with generalized anxiety. I've been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. I have been diagnosed with, they gave me bipolar 2 one time. Um, and when I started actually acknowledging like rest, I had testing for ADHD and they said, "Oh, I'm not convinced that you have ADD," even though I had like 30 out of
All the
40 on
symptoms?
this scale. They were like, "I'm not convinced." It's like, "Okay, great, thanks." And then I did like an actual physical test, and the doctor said, he was like, "I don't know if you have ADD. I found executive dysfunction and you seem to move around a lot." I was like, "I don't know, doc, what would you call that?" So I've had a very hard time as a woman getting diagnosed with anything. And then a lot of it was putting together pieces as far as I have pretty significant sensory issues. So I would get in trouble as a kid for like hated underwear. And I would always like sneak away and like take off my underwear. And my parents would be like, you need to be wearing underwear. It was a whole like fight from ages 4, 5, 6 up to like 9. And then I think we finally found a brand that wasn't as elasticy or something. And to this day, it's like I have 2 brands of underwear that I wear and I can't do any others. I have specific socks and they have to match and they have to be the same kind of socks. I have to cut the tags out of everything or I get like itchy and I have a lot of I have some minor auditory processing issues. So that was the hardest part about learning a new language, where I'm one of those, you say something to me and I'll have to like pause and like let it download because I have to hear it a second time in my head. So a lot of it was just putting together like, oh, hey, all of these little quirks that I had are considered diagnostic criteria. And so I've considered going to get assessed, but I don't know that it would actually give me any information that I don't feel like I have.
No. before you had got your own, before you diagnosed yourself, did you kind of feel you were looking like the inside out or the outside in?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And one of the big things that lined up really well with kind of the sort of outsider syndrome was I'm actually in long-term substance abuse recovery because that was something that helped me feel like I was a normal person. So I would, I mostly drank and like smoked weed, but I did drugs too, and I'm glad I'm clean. But it helped me feel like I could fit in and reduce my inhibition so I could feel like a little bit more like myself. It felt like an excuse. A lot of it was an excuse to unmask because I'm already enthusiastic and I make too much eye contact and I'm a little bit silly and I talk too like all these things that I felt like weren't allowed
Mhm.
unless I had an excuse. And also that like dopamine issue, that dopamine deficiency. Um, and so yeah, it honestly a lot of my I feel like coming to terms with everything came additionally like once I got clean. It was like, oh right, I've always been like this, and putting together pieces like just across the thing where it was that finally I just felt like I looked back and I was like, all of these disparate issues make perfect sense as pieces of a puzzle, and this is what it's showing.
Now, after you figured out what was going on with yourself, did things start to make sense? Was there that light bulb moment like, oh my
Oh
God,
yeah.
this is why I'm such a neurotic mess?
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh. Well, especially like finally being able to just call it sensory issues. It was like, oh, yeah, no, I definitely have that. And like it made it so much easier for me to just be like, okay, it's not that I'm like a weirdo who can't wear tags. It's like, oh, I have sensory issues. Okay. Oh, sometimes I have to wear like my headphones out in public, or I need to like, and it also really helped with not getting overwhelmed because I was like, oh, there are a lot of sound inputs right now. And I started paying attention like, oh, this is a sound I don't like, or this is really noisy. Like, okay, hang on, take a breath. Can I get out of the situation? Can I adjust that? And it's made it a lot easier for me to not have moments of overwhelm or even like, I'm pretty like what they would have called Asperger's. And I think now they just call it all ASD, but I have meltdowns, in my way. And it's been very helpful to be like, wait a minute, okay, like to know when to pull myself out so that I don't have to completely get overwhelmed.
Now, here's a question I'm pretty sure you get asked. You
Hmm.
have ADHD. You're
Hmm.
also a physical therapist. You're also a leadership
Yes.
coach. And
Hmm.
you're also married. How do you juggle everything with your ADU, all your two jobs, your marriage, along with dealing with your ADHD? It's got to be complicated. Complicated.
Sometimes. So one of the fun things is that for me, it feels like those don't actually feel as much like two different jobs because I'm helping people do the same thing, which is get back to doing something they love or decide to do something that they love that they gave up on in both jobs. I'm doing them in different ways, right? Like if you quit surfing because your knee hurt, I'm helping you fix your knee so that you can surf again, but we're like practicing surfing, and that's like, for me, that's the win is, oh my gosh, like when they're like, I got out on the waves, yes. And with leadership coaching, it's like, oh, I'm gonna stay at this job because it's safe. I decided I'm not gonna pursue whatever that thing is that was like my dream. And when it's like, okay, wait, how can we take little steps to do that without sabotaging your safety? I'm not like a jump off the cliff kind of coach. I don't think that's actually helpful. But it's like, okay, wait, what are ways that you can build this in? And they have that moment of like, okay, I decided I'm gonna do this thing. And it's like, yes, like I get the same victory energy out of it. And it also helps a lot that my husband is on the spectrum and we've gotten really good at like kind of
That's really
trading
good.
off who's
You're
the
one of the
foundation.
you're one of the lucky few who have found somebody
Yeah.
who is on the spectrum that can match your own energy. I've been looking my
Yeah.
entire life for somebody who understands me, and it's tough.
It's super tough. And it's honestly, he does not match my energy. He complements it.
That's even
So
better.
I am way up here and he's just like kind of gently here most of the time. Like, all right, also, like, all of this is great. I love what you're doing. Also, breathe, you know? Like, and then there are certain things that he gets really excited about that he has like a lot of ideas and I'll help with like, okay, wait, here's how we implement it, right? And I'll kind of bring in that meticulous piece of like, wait a minute, how do we actually make this happen? Which is part of what makes me a good leadership coach is that I have that meticulous aspect along with I'm really excited about your dreams. But it is truly like a complementary relationship, much more so than a match, which because I've been with people, I think I've been with like one person who was like me in a lot of ways. And it wasn't bad, but in the end, it was like we both needed the same kinds of rest at the same time. We both need, and it ended up being a little bit tricky to have that balance of like, hey, I actually need to like curl up on the couch in a blanket and not talk to anyone for 3 hours. Can you manage dinner or the dogs or whatever if it's like we both need to be in the blanket at the same time? It makes it a little tougher to also be functioning adults. So
Now, with your practice, would you say you've most of what is the percentage that are neurodivergent to neurotypical?
it's tricky because I would say that it's probably 100%, but I don't know if my clients know that.
So basically, you know you're neurodivergent because of your being it. So basically, you're saying your ADHD makes it easier for you to read your clients and see the traits, but they don't see it themselves.
Or they don't know that that's what it is. Like a lot of people pick a coach who's like a version of them that they want to get to, right? And so they're like, "Oh, I see myself in you, but also you have something that I really want."
Hmm.
And I work with a lot of people who are sensitive, who feel like outsiders,
Mm.
who feel like they don't understand relationships well, or who they don't understand and tolerate emotions well. That's mostly who's drawn to me.
Sounds
And
sounds like most neurotypical people or neurodivergent people because
yeah,
we all wear our
well, and
emotions on our sleeves.
absolutely. And also, I am so sincere and like obviously sincere that that attracts a certain type of person and kind of repels another. And so for a lot of neurotypical people, I think it's uncomfortable. Like if um, the way that I talk and how honest I am when like I have even like, I'll do like discovery calls and they're not really sales calls. Half the time they're strategy calls where it's like, you don't really need my help. Here's what, try this, see if that works, right? Like 'cause sometimes it's specifically, I'm looking for a job here and da da da, and we'll talk through it. Um, and sometimes it's like, oh, okay, like you have something deeper going on that I definitely think I can help you with. But the people that feel the most connected to me definitely fit neurodivergence because they're drawn in by my sincerity instead of a little bit like afraid of it.
Now, with your ADU, your AUDHD, you're like me,
Mhm.
you probably have racing thoughts. How do you deal with that? I mean, I know with me, if I didn't use CBD at night, I'd be talking to myself in my sleep and I keep myself up all night. How do you
Yep.
deal?
Audiobooks at night.
Hmm.
So I listen to someone else talk. Um, and I go to sleep to someone else talking. And I meditate. And it is like my favorite and least favorite thing. Like I will still like a little kid be like, I'm gonna go meditate. And I'm like mad about it every time. And it's hard. And I have a bunch of different ways that I meditate now, but I sit for 10 minutes and I target my focus on one thing. So sometimes it's my breath. Sometimes I'm listening to sound, like actually just focus in on all the sounds I can hear, whether it's listening to something in headphones. Most of the time it's like listening and being like, okay, there's the sound of the heater. Okay, there's the sound of kids laughing outside. Okay, I'm just like really focusing in on that. Or one of the easiest ones for me is to watch a candle flame because
Wow.
it won't hurt your eyes, but you really focus in and flames kind of like hypnotize the human brain. We like still can't quite cope with fire after all of our years of evolution because it's so important for our survival. that it's if you watch it, you kind of like hypnotize into it almost. And so that can be a really helpful way. And when I notice I'm thinking like, okay, wait, back to the flame.
Now, here's a question. When you meditate, I mean, I know when it's happened with me. Have you ever like sat there and meditated and to the point where you realize you hear your thoughts going through your head and you
Hmm.
realize it's a thought because your
Yeah.
focus switch and you're like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, did I just hear one of my own thoughts in my head? And then you're like,
Yeah.
and then you're focusing and you're like, wait a minute, I need to switch back to my focus on my breath. And you're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, that was an actual thought I hear myself think. It just blows
Yeah.
my mind that that happens.
Yeah. No, and that's kind of the point. Like I think a lot of people that I talk to are like, "Oh, I'm really bad at meditation. I always lose focus." And I'm like, I I'm no guru, but as far as I can tell, I've been meditating in some form or another for at least 10 years. And I think the point is to notice and come back.
Hmm.
I don't think it's to stay.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
not.
there are some people who stay. I think they mostly live in monasteries. Like I really don't think that I don't think it's a common skill.
No, if you like use like Headspace, the meditation app, they tell
Mhm.
you that you'll hear your own thoughts, but
Yeah.
your thing is to note it. Don't try to force it or ignore it, but note
Uh-huh.
that it's a thought and then switch back to your focus on your breath. Because your job
Right.
is to note it's there and just let it go.
Exactly. Like
And
don't
not
follow the
sit
thread.
there.
Just be like, "Oh, thought. Okay."
It's not to sit there and
And
focus on it and figure out what it is and how to
yeah.
answer it. No, it's to say, hey, oh, wait a minute. I'm focusing on something else. This is a thought that I had come into my head. I should
Yeah.
know. But if it's important, I need to jot it down.
Yeah. And actually, this ties back to when you asked about like handling a marriage as a like with ADHD or AUDHD. Um, some of it is one of my things that like my husband will actually joke about and he'll now ask like, "Hey, did you meditate today?" And it's like not quite like, "Are you about to get your period?" but like a little bit because it's, "Hey, are you like feeling a little on edge? Are you feeling a little bit crabby?" Because I used to I'd be like, I need to go meditate. I would go meditate and I would come back and I would be like, hey, I realized I've been doing this thing and it's not cool. And I would explain what I've been doing. He's like, I literally wanted to talk to you about that because I just got finished talking to a friend about how you're doing this thing and it's driving me crazy. And I was like, yep, totally. Like I am. I, and I can't see that if I don't take time to be still.
Now, have you found or figured out what your special interest is?
A lot of, I know that some of it is like magic, whether magic is real or not. I love quantum physics.
Uh,
I love
uh,
studying
if
like
you weren't,
different,
if you weren't married to be a woman after my own heart, I love quantum
oh,
physics. I would have,
yeah.
I mean, when I was figuring out what I wanted to take in school, quantum
Mhm.
physics was one of the courses, and I wanted to take it, but unfortunately, there weren't enough students, so they canceled that class. I mean, I
So
find quantum physics so fascinating.
it's
The
so
qubits and
cool.
everything else, and how it works and how deep. D-wave, I mean, quantum computing.
Hmm.
That's the wave of the future.
Right. Well, and even just like I was especially involved in like quantum entanglement and like the potential that like is the whole universe actually holographic and what does this look like and what dimension are we really in? And then I love studying like different traditions. So like whether you believe it's real or not, right? Like it's very cool to look at like, like Celtic shamanism is fascinating and like some like Native American traditions and um
It
like
must be
I've been
weird for
interested
you
in
being an American and with all these things stuck, being living in Barcelona and a whole other traditions,
mhm.
values. It must be weird.
Yeah, I mean to an extent. But I mean before that like I said, like the thing with the United States is that it's so big, and I've lived in 5 cities as an adult. Is that right? Maybe it's only 4. four cities as an adult, all in different areas. So it's different everywhere you go, in terms of, and it's also, you can find the, like what I would call the weirdos, but I say that lovingly and include myself in that group in any city, right? Like you can find the people who are like, oh, yeah, I keep my little garden and I, burn sage and I harvest bees and whatever it is, right? Like I have my little, and just different versions of like, okay, this is like what I learned from my grandma and all that kind of stuff anywhere that you go. Um, there are people who are doing like the classic, like, oh, this is what our culture is, and then a lot of people who are doing other weird side projects. So
Yeah, I mean, it blows
I'm
my
pretty good at finding the
mind.
weirdos.
Yeah, I mean, what it blows my mind is you look at the number of us who are autistic and the interest we have just huge from little
Yeah.
things to like major thing to people who have
Hmm.
literally taken that interest and created their own worlds from with it. It's just
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, a lot of mine is like I definitely think magic is a big piece of it. Like I love fantasy books and things like that. And there's also um a component that I've had suggested to me that my special interest might actually be people. And that might explain a little bit of what I do because I love like understanding things. I studied psychology and then studied physical therapy, where it's like learning how the human body works and learning how humans work, learning how the human brain works, learning how they work, like trying to understand. And whether that was, oh, I want to understand so that I don't get lost or confused or left out, or whether that's an actual special interest, I don't really know.
Yeah. Now, what are some of the strategies you use to manage your life?
I plan. So this goes back to the magic thing is I plan based on the phase of the moon. And also being a woman, honestly, like I kind of sync up with the moon cycle. So I know, so it's like, so I also, it's like basically cycle syncing, but that's a big one. It's like, okay, there are certain weeks that I'm going to be higher energy and some that I'm going to be lower energy. And planning ahead for that has been really helpful for me. I also try to notice like my day-to-day cycle. So like I am probably most creative from like 8 to 11 a.m. And so I wake up and I do a lot of my creative work at that time. And then as the day goes on, I get a little bit more social. So I do a lot of my calls in the evening, which works out perfectly for my time zone because most of those calls are with people in the US or people in my own time zone or in the UK. So it's pretty easy to, okay, if it's my evening, it's not necessarily yours. And then I kind of let myself have like the siesta actually works out really well because I took a long lunch break when I was in Charlotte too to like, okay, this is when I exercise because I exercise best right around noon. Like it's midday, I have a lot of energy. It hasn't gotten late enough that I've decided not to exercise and I'll just put it off till tomorrow. And it isn't so early that I decide not to do it so I can sleep in. So a lot of it is I've tried to structure my days around my natural energy cycle and then kind of structure my months the same way.
People need people need to do that because
Yes.
when your energy is at its highest, it's when you're most productive.
Hmm.
I had a guest on who is developing an app that will work off your smartwatch and it will alert you to tell you when you're at your peak, when your energy
Oh,
levels are at
nice.
your peak. And it says, hey,
Yeah.
your energy level's here. You might as well be productive now.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a huge thing. And it's one of the things that I love about being self-employed. And I think a lot of people I know with
Mhm.
autism anywhere on the spectrum end up self-employed just because offices are loud and noisy
Mhm.
and bright and energy cycles waver and you're able to be in a lot more control. And I think that that's a big piece of it.
Now, what advice do you have for those who have ADHD?
I think the biggest one is probably that you belong, because everybody that meet with this diagnosis or with a self-diagnosis, but like meets the criteria is like, okay, I'm not quite like these people, but I'm not quite like these people, and I just feel like I don't fit anywhere because even among like the autistic like community, I'm way more social. And I think that's kind of a misnomer because most autistic people I know burn out easily, but not if they feel comfortable. They actually love connecting with people. It just has to be a real deep connection. Um, it's like I don't quite fit in with the ADD community because I'm a little bit too something, right? And it's like part of the deal is what I found is when I let myself be myself and let myself unmask a little. Like I find my people. And honestly, a lot of the time they find me.
Hmm.
Like people will find me and they're like, oh, you know, and and it's like it helps you remember that like you belong.
And finally, where can people reach you on the web?
So if I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, and I have websites. I'm technically on Facebook, but I'm not very active on Facebook. You mostly see holdover reels from Instagram. But so my website is reclaimyourlifesomatics.com if you are interested in like any of the leadership coaching that I do. And then I'm just on LinkedIn as Dr. Jessee Glaze, and I'm on Instagram as at Dr. Jessee Glaze. So
And that's it, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Reed Miles. That was Jessee Glaze, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Thanks, Jessee.
thank you.